The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly before the Yanhua, broken only by the distant glitter of stars and the occasional shimmer of cosmic dust. The massive patrol vessel glided silently through the void, its iridescent hull reflecting the light of nearby stars. For centuries, the Hanel people had maintained their watch over this sector of space, their dedication unwavering, their vigilance absolute. Captain Jin Ho Park stood on the bridge, his tall, slender frame casting a long shadow across the polished floor. His four-fingered hands were clasped behind his back as he studied the main view screen. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, the soft hum of equipment and occasional beeps of the instruments creating a familiar atmosphere of efficiency. The Hanel took pride in their role as guardians of this space. The Galactic Confederation had chosen them for their discipline, their attention to detail, and their unwavering commitment to protocol. In all these years, nothing had slipped past their watch unnoticed or unchallenged. Lieutenant Yumki's voice cut through the quiet. "Captain, sensors are picking up something unusual." Her silvery skin gleamed under the bridge lights as she worked at her station. "There's an unknown signature approaching from Sector 7. Jin-Ho moved to her station, his movements fluid and graceful despite his age. "Show me." The holographic display flickered to life, showing a mass of confusing readings. The lieutenant's fingers danced across the controls, trying to make sense of the data. "Sir, these readings, they're like nothing in our database. The energy signature is completely foreign." The captain's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of concern among the Hanel. Magnification. The screen shifted, and there it was. The vessel that appeared made every crew member on the bridge stop and stare. It was massive, easily matching the Yanhua in size, but its design was alien in every sense of the word. Where Hanel ships were elegant curves and flowing lines, this vessel was angular, with sharp edges and dark surfaces that seemed to drink in the light. Power radiated from it in waves that made their most sophisticated sensors struggle to maintain a lock. "Run a full spectrum analysis," Jin-Ho ordered, keeping his voice steady despite the unease growing in his chest. The bridge crew's tension was palpable. He could sense their antennae twitching, a clear sign of nervous energy among his people. "Sir," Yumki reported, "the vessel's hull composition is unknown. Their power source. Our readings suggest it's operating on principles we've never encountered before. They're running some kind of energy field that's interfering with our deep scans." Jin-Ho studied the ship carefully. In all his years of service, he had never encountered anything like this. The Galactic Confederation had cataloged every known spacefaring race in this arm of the galaxy. This ship belonged to none of them. "Send the standard greeting protocol," he ordered, maintaining his composure. "All frequencies, all known language patterns." The minutes that followed were tense. The unknown vessel continued its approach, maintaining a steady course that would bring it through the heart of Hanel space. The crew watched, waited, their antennae swiveling in anticipation. The response, when it came, was as unusual as the ship itself. Instead of the expected diplomatic frequencies, their computers detected a burst of electromagnetic signals unlike anything in their database. The bridge erupted in activity as they worked to decode it. "Sir," Yumki called out, her voice pitched higher with excitement or fear. Perhaps both. "We're getting something. The computer is processing it now." The message that finally appeared on their screens was deceptively simple. "UNSC Stellar Dawn, requesting passage. Humanitarian mission." Jin-Ho's antennae twitched forward. UNC. The designation was unknown. The message format was crude by Hanel standards, direct, unadorned with the usual diplomatic courtesies. And yet there was something about it that suggested power, confidence. This was not a race asking for permission. This was a race informing them of their intentions. "Sir," his tactical officer, Kang Min, spoke up. "Their weapons systems. We can't get a clear reading, but what we can detect suggests capabilities far beyond anything we've encountered. Should we raise shields?" Jin-Ho considered his options carefully. Protocol demanded they challenge any unauthorized vessel entering their space, but Protocol had never dealt with a situation quite like this. Maintain current status, he decided, but bring our defensive systems to ready status. Quietly, he turned to his communications officer. Prepare a response. Request their full identification and purpose. Remind them they are entering protected space under the jurisdiction of the Galactic Confederation. As the message was sent, Jin-Ho watched the mysterious vessel on the screen. Something told him this encounter would change everything his people thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. The Hanel had grown comfortable in their role as guardians, secure in their technological superiority. But now, watching this dark ship approach with its impossible readings and casual disregard for established protocols, Jin-Ho felt a sensation he hadn't experienced in centuries. Doubt. Whatever this UNSC was, whoever these people were, they were about to discover that the galaxy was far larger and more complex than they had imagined. The bridge crew waited in tense silence for the response, all eyes fixed on the approaching vessel that seemed to defy everything they thought they knew about space travel. The day that had started like any other was quickly becoming one that would be remembered in Hanel history for generations to come. Captain He-Jin Lee stood at the command center of the UNSC Stellar Dawn, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display showing their current predicament. The massive human warship, despite its imposing size and capability, felt suddenly small in this unfamiliar region of space. They had known the risk of cutting through this territory, but with 20,000 colonists on New Haven facing a deadly virus outbreak, there hadn't been much choice. The cargo holds of the Stellar Dawn were packed with emergency medical supplies, vaccines, and critical care equipment. Every hour delayed meant more lives at risk. The normal route would have taken 3 weeks. This shortcut through unknown space could get them there in 5 days. It had seemed worth the gamble at the time. Status report. He-Jin called out, her voice carrying across the bridge with calm authority. Commander Tai-Young's fingers moved swiftly across her tactical station. The alien vessel is maintaining position. Their scanning attempts are becoming more aggressive, but our countermeasures are holding. She paused, her eyes widening slightly. Captain, multiple FTL signatures detected. The bridge crew watched as 5 more alien ships materialized around them, their iridescent hulls catching the light of distant stars. They moved with precise coordination, taking up positions that effectively surrounded the Stellar Dawn. Tactical analysis, He-Jin ordered, studying the new arrivals. The ships appear to be of similar design to the first, Tai-Young reported. Elegant construction, highly advanced. Their energy readings suggest sophisticated weapons systems, though different from anything in our database. They're beautiful ships, Captain, but they could be just as deadly as they are pretty. He-Jin nodded slowly. She had served in the UNSC for 20 years, fought in the Proxima conflict, and led humanitarian missions to a dozen worlds. But this situation was unique. These aliens weren't showing aggression, yet, but their positioning spoke volumes about their capabilities and training. Engineering, status of our shields, she called out. Chief Engineer Min-Ho's voice came back immediately. Shields at maximum capacity, Captain. The new quantum harmonics are holding steady. We could take a beating if we had to, but I'd rather not test that theory. Agreed, He-Jin said. Weapons remain powered down. We're not here to start a war. She turned to her communications officer. Any progress decoding their language patterns? Lieutenant Jai-Yun shook her head. Their communication protocols are complex. We're picking up multiple layers of encrypted data in their transmissions. The universal translator is struggling to process it all. The bridge fell silent as another transmission came in from the alien flagship. The translator worked for several seconds before producing a result. Unknown vessel, you have entered protected space. Power down your shields and prepare for inspection. He-Jin leaned back in her command chair, considering their options. The medical supplies in their hold were too valuable to risk, but these aliens couldn't be expected to just take their word about being on a humanitarian mission. Send them our ship's registry and mission parameters, she ordered. Include basic data about the medical emergency on New Haven, but keep our defensive capabilities classified. She paused, then added, also send them visual data of our cargo. Let them see we're carrying medical supplies, not weapons. As Jai-Yun transmitted the message, Ho-Jin studied the alien vessels more closely. Their design philosophy was fascinating. All flowing lines and organic curves, so different from the utilitarian architecture of human ships. The Stellar Dawn was built like a fortress, all angular plates and reinforced armor. These aliens seemed to have turned spaceship design into an art form. Captain, Tai Young called out suddenly. They're powering up something. Not weapons, some kind of scanning array, but it's like nothing I've seen before. Let them scan, He-Jin decided, but maintain shield harmonics. They can look, but they're not getting through to our sensitive systems. The minutes ticked by as the alien ships maintained their position. The bridge crew remained alert, each person focused on their station, ready for anything. He-Jin could feel the tension in the air, but was proud of how her crew handled it. They were professionals, trained for exactly this kind of situation. Message incoming, Jai-Yun announced. The translator worked quickly this time. Your non-compliance with standard inspection protocols is unacceptable. Lower your shields or we will be forced to take action. He-Jin straightened in her chair. This was the moment where things could go very wrong very quickly. 20,000 lives were counting on them, but starting an interstellar incident wouldn't help anyone. Record response, she ordered. This is Captain He-Jin Lee of the UNSC Stellar Dawn. We respect your authority in this sector, but we cannot comply with your request to lower our shields. We are carrying critical medical supplies to a colony facing a pandemic. Time is of the essence. We ask for emergency passage through your territory. We will submit to external scans and share all non-classified data about our cargo and mission. As the message was transmitted, He-Jin watched the alien ships, trying to read their intentions from their positioning and power signatures. The next few moments would determine whether this became a diplomatic breakthrough or a military confrontation. She just hoped these aliens could understand that sometimes breaking protocol was necessary to save lives. It was a very human concept, one that she wasn't sure would translate across the gulf of space and species. The bridge of the Yanhua hummed with tension as Admiral Jinho watched the massive human vessel through the main viewport. His inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of deep thought among the handle. In all his years of service, he had never encountered a situation quite like this. The human ship hung in space before them, its dark hull absorbing light in ways that seemed to defy physics. Their sensors still struggled to get clear readings of its internal structure, but what they could detect was both impressive and concerning. The vessel's power output alone suggested technology that rivaled or perhaps even surpassed their own. Another message from High Command. Admiral, Mei Ray announced from her station. Her silvery skin reflected the soft blue light of her console as she studied the incoming transmission. They're growing impatient. They want these humans escorted from our space immediately. Jinho's antennae twitched forward, a gesture that among the handle indicated focused attention. What do our deep scans show? That's the strange part, sir, Mei Ray replied, bringing up a holographic display. Their weapon systems remain completely powered down, but their shields. She paused, adjusting some readings. The complexity of their shield harmonics is unlike anything we've seen before. They're letting our basic scans through, showing us their medical cargo, but anything deeper just disperses. The Admiral moved closer to the display, studying the readings. The human's behavior contradicted everything he knew about first contact situations. Most species either approached with weapons ready or came completely defenseless, hoping for mercy. These humans had chosen a middle path, protected but not threatening. Play back their last transmission, he ordered. The human captain's voice filled the bridge, translated by their computers. Despite the artificial translation, Something about the tone carried through, a mixture of determination and diplomatic restraint that Jin Ho found intriguing. "Sir," called out his tactical officer, "I've completed the analysis of their claimed destination, New Haven Colony. If they're telling the truth about the pandemic, taking the long way around would add 16 days to their journey." Jin Ho's inner eyelids flickered again. 16 days. In an epidemic that could mean thousands of deaths. But protocols existed for a reason. The last time the Hanel had relaxed their vigilance, during the Great Expansion, it had led to disaster. "Myray," he called out, "what's your assessment?" His second-in-command straightened, her antennae shifting in a pattern that indicated careful consideration. "Their behavior is inconsistent with any known hostile species we've encountered. They're powerful enough to fight, yet they make no aggressive moves. They're in a hurry, yet they take time to explain themselves. They shield their military capabilities, but freely show us their medical cargo." "Unpredictable," Jin Ho murmured. "They're unpredictable." A new alert sounded from the sensor station. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual energy readings from their ship. They're powering up something, but it's not weapons." Jin Ho watched as new data scrolled across his display. The human vessel was indeed activating some kind of system, but its purpose remained unclear. This was the moment where he had to decide whether to trust his instincts or follow strict protocol. "Sir," Myray said quietly, "High Command is demanding an immediate response." Jin Ho studied the human ship once more. Everything about them defied convention. Their ship design ignored the elegant efficiency the Hanel had perfected over centuries. Their communication was direct, almost blunt by Hanel standards. Their technology seemed to operate on principles that challenged Hanel understanding of physics. Yet something about their behavior spoke to Jin Ho's centuries of experience. There was a purpose to their actions, a logic he couldn't quite grasp but could sense. They were like a puzzle where all the pieces were familiar, but the picture they formed was entirely new. "Tell High Command," he said finally, "that I am investigating an unusual situation that requires diplomatic finesse. Remind them of Article 7 of the Space Guard Charter, a commander's discretion in unprecedented situations." Nyray's antennae lifted in surprise, but she nodded and began composing the message. Jin Ho knew he was taking a risk. His career, carefully built over centuries, could end over this decision. But something told him these humans were important, that this moment mattered more than protocols and procedures. "Open a direct channel to the human vessel," he ordered. "Let's see what they do when we stop treating them like a threat and start treating them like a mystery to be solved." The bridge crew exchanged glances, but followed his orders. As the channel opened, Jin Ho prepared himself for whatever unprecedented response these unpredictable humans might offer. Sometimes, he reflected, the most significant discoveries came not from following protocols, but from knowing when to set them aside. The tension on both ships had reached a critical point. On the bridge of the Yanhua, Admiral Jin Ho felt the weight of centuries of protocol pressing against the uncertainty of this unprecedented situation. His crew watched anxiously as the human vessel maintained its position, shields still humming at full power despite repeated warnings. "Admiral," Myray reported, her voice tight with concern, "3 more patrol vessels have arrived from the outer sector. They're taking up attack positions on your command." The human ship, UNSC Stellar Dawn, now found itself surrounded by 9 Hanel vessels, their iridescent hulls forming a perfect containment pattern. Yet the humans showed no signs of fear or aggression. They simply waited, their shields steady, their weapons cold. "Open the channel again," Jin Ho ordered, his inner eyelids flickering rapidly. When the connection was established, he spoke with all the authority of his position. "UNSC Stellar Dawn, this is your final warning. Lower your shields for inspection, or we will be forced to take action. This is not a negotiation." The response came quickly. Captain He-jin's voice carried a quiet strength that even the translation computers couldn't diminish. "Admiral, with all due respect, we cannot, and will not lower our shields. Our mission is time-critical, and our cargo is too valuable to risk. We understand your protocols, but we have 20,000 lives depending on these supplies." Jinho's antennae twitched in frustration. "You claim to carry medical supplies, yet refuse inspection. You speak of saving lives while risking conflict. Your actions contradict your words, Captain." "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "the human vessel is making some kind of adjustment to their shield harmonics. They're actually strengthening them, but in a way I've never seen before." On the stellar dawn, Captain He-Jin knew they were walking a dangerous line. Her bridge crew maintained their composure, but she could see the tension in their movements, hear it in their voices. "Captain," Commander Taeyum reported, "the alien vessels are powering up their weapon systems. Not to full capacity yet, but they're preparing for engagement." He-Jin straightened in her command chair. "Open a channel again. Let me speak to their admiral." When the connection was established, she chose her words carefully. "Admiral Jinho, I want you to understand something. Humans have a saying: the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Right now, there are 20,000 colonists facing a deadly virus outbreak. Every hour we delay costs lives. We cannot lower our shields because we cannot risk any interference with our medical cargo's containment fields." The Admiral's response was immediate. "You ask us to trust your word alone. The Hanel have protected this sector for centuries. Our protocols exist for a reason. Then trust your scans." He-Jin countered. "You can see our cargo holds. You can verify we carry no weapons. We will submit to any external inspection you wish to perform. But our shields stay up." On the Yanhua's bridge, Jinho faced his own crisis of protocol. The human's argument made a certain logical sense, but accepting it would mean breaking centuries of established procedure. He could feel the eyes of his crew on him, waiting for his decision. "Sir," Mayray said quietly, "High Command is demanding immediate action. They're citing Regulation 7 Alpha. No unauthorized vessel may maintain active shields within Hanel space." Jinho watched as the human ship adjusted its position slightly, maintaining equal distance from all surrounding vessels. It was a defensive posture, but also one that minimized any appearance of threat. These humans were clever. They knew exactly how to position themselves to appear non-threatening while remaining completely protected. "Begin power-up sequence for shield disruptors," he ordered finally. Protocol had to be maintained, even if every instinct told him this was wrong. The human captain's next transmission caught everyone by surprise. "Admiral, we detect you're powering up shield disruptors. Before you take action, you should know. Our shields operate on quantum harmonics. Any attempt to disrupt them could create a cascade effect that would endanger every ship in this sector." The bridge fell silent. Quantum harmonics. The technology was theoretical, even for the Hanel, if the humans had actually developed it. "Sir," his science officer called out urgently, "she's right. These readings, if their shields really are quantum-based, disrupting them could trigger a space-time reaction. We'd be risking more than just our ships." Jinho's antennae went completely still, a sign of intense focus among his people. The humans had just changed the game entirely. Now it wasn't just about protocols and procedures. It was about preventing a potential disaster. The standoff had evolved into something far more complex than a simple matter of compliance. Now both sides faced a choice where neither could back down, but moving forward might lead to catastrophe. As Jinho prepared his next transmission, he wondered if this was how first contact situations usually went for humans, balanced on the edge between crisis and breakthrough, with the fate of thousands hanging in the balance. The first sign of trouble came as a subtle distortion in space, barely noticeable on the sensors. Lieutenant Yumkeev on the Yanhua was the first to spot it, her eyes widening as she studied the readings on her console. "Admiral," she called out, her voice tight with urgency, "something's forming between our ships. The quantum readings are off the scale." Before Jinho could respond, space itself seemed to twist between the vessels. Colors that shouldn't exist in normal space began to swirl and pulse, forming what every Hanel crew member recognized with horror: a quantum storm. These rare but devastating phenomena were known to appear in this sector, tearing ships apart at the molecular level. All vessels, emergency maneuvers. Jin-Ho broadcasted immediately, his voice carrying across all channels. Break formation. Get clear of the distortion. The Hanel ships began to move with practiced precision, their engines flaring as they attempted to retreat from the growing anomaly. But the storm was expanding faster than anyone had expected, its tendrils of impossible energy reaching out like hungry fingers. "Sir, the quantum disruption is growing exponentially," Myray reported, her fingers flying across her console. "At this rate, it will engulf the entire fleet in less than 3 minutes." That's when the humans did something completely unexpected. Instead of retreating with the rest of the ships, the Stellar Dawn moved forward, directly toward the heart of the storm. What are they doing? Jin-Ho's antennae twisted in confusion and alarm. They'll be torn apart. A transmission cut through the chaos. Captain He-Jin's voice steady and clear. "All Hanel vessels, this is the Stellar Dawn. Our shields are specifically designed to withstand quantum fluctuations. We can help. Stand by for protection." The Hanel crew watched in amazement as the human ship positioned itself between their fleet and the growing storm. The Stellar Dawn's shields began to pulse with a strange rhythmic energy that seemed to push back against the quantum distortion. "Admiral," the science officer called out, "the humans' shield harmonics. They're actually stabilizing the local space-time fabric. I've never seen anything like it." Jin-Ho studied his readings in disbelief. The human vessel's shields were somehow creating a zone of stable space around them, pushing back against the chaos of the quantum storm. But even their advanced technology seemed to be straining against the force of the anomaly. "Sir," Myray reported urgently, "the human ship is broadcasting technical data. They're showing us how to modify our shields to match their harmonic frequency." It was a moment of truth. The humans were freely sharing advanced technology that they had just minutes ago refused to let the Hanel examine. They were risking their own ship to protect the very fleet that had been threatening them. "Engineering, implement those modifications immediately," Jin-Ho ordered. "All ships, sync your shield harmonics with the human vessel." The next few minutes were a blur of activity as the Hanel ships adjusted their systems according to the human specifications. The quantum storm continued to grow, but now it faced a coordinated defense as ship after ship brought their modified shields online. "Captain He-Jin to Hanel Fleet," the human commander's voice came through again, strained but determined. "Form up behind us in a triangular pattern. We'll create a resonance field that should dissipate the storm's energy." Jin-Ho watched as the human ship shields pulsed even brighter, creating patterns in space that seemed to cancel out the storm's chaos. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, a display of technology that made the Hanel's most advanced systems look primitive in comparison. "All ships, move into position," he ordered. "Follow the humans' lead." As the Hanel vessels formed up behind the Stellar Dawn, their combined shield harmonics began to create a stable zone in the turbulent space. The quantum storm raged against their defensive barrier, but the coordinated effort held firm. "The storm's energy is decreasing," Myray reported with growing excitement. "The resonance field is working. The distortion is beginning to collapse." Jin-Ho stood at his command station, watching as humans and Hanel worked together to face a threat that neither could have handled alone. In this moment of crisis, all the protocols and suspicions that had divided them seemed suddenly insignificant. The quantum storm that had threatened to destroy them all had instead shown them something far more valuable, that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from following protocols, but from trusting in the unexpected help of strangers. The bridge of the Stellar Dawn had become a hub of frantic activity. Captain He-Jin watched as her crew worked seamlessly with their Hanel counterparts, centuries of distrust forgotten in the face of immediate danger. The quantum storm still raged around them, but now they had a plan. shields holding at 87%. Commander Taeyum reported, her fingers dancing across the controls. The Hanel ships are successfully matching our harmonic frequencies. Through the main viewport, the storm painted space in impossible colors, but the combined shield network was creating a sphere of calm amid the chaos. The Stellar Dawn's position at the front of the formation allowed it to bear the brunt of the quantum distortions, while protecting the smaller Hanel vessels behind it. Engineering to bridge. Chief Engineer Minho's voice crackled through the comm. Captain, I've been working with the Hanel engineers. They've got some fascinating ideas about shield modulation that might help us create a stable corridor. Jin leaned forward in her chair. Explain. Their shield technology uses different principles than ours, but if we combine both approaches, we might be able to create a path through this mess. It's never been done before, but the theory is sound. On the Yanhua, Admiral Jinho had reached a similar conclusion. His engineers were already sharing technical data with the humans, their earlier suspicions replaced by professional curiosity and urgent necessity. The human shield technology is remarkable, Myray observed, studying the data streaming across her screen. They've developed practical applications for theories our scientists considered impossible. Jinho nodded, watching as the Stellar Dawn's massive form held steady against the storm's fury. And yet they need our help to create this corridor. Perhaps there's a lesson in that. The next hour was a testament to what could be achieved when two advanced species put aside their differences and worked together. Human quantum shield technology combined with Hanel spacetime manipulation techniques in ways neither side had imagined possible. Beginning corridor generation, Jin announced across all channels. All ships maintain position and match shield frequencies precisely. The Stellar Dawn's engines glowed brighter as it pushed forward, its modified shields creating a wedge in the quantum storm. Behind it, the Hanel ships moved in perfect formation, their combined shield harmonics reinforcing the stable space the humans were creating. It's working, Taeyang reported with barely contained excitement. The corridor is forming. Quantum fluctuations are down 60% within the protected zone. Through the viewports of both fleets, crew members watched in awe as a clear path began to form through the chaos of the storm. It was like watching a tunnel being carved through lightning. Beautiful, impossible, and slightly terrifying. All ships maintain current positions, Jinho ordered. The corridor appears stable, but one wrong move could collapse it. The combined fleet moved slowly forward, the Stellar Dawn leading the way through the storm like some ancient icebreaker clearing a path. Human and Hanel engineers continued to refine their shield modifications, strengthening the corridor with each passing minute. Captain, Minho called from engineering. The Hanel shield modifications are actually improving our efficiency. We're learning more about quantum field manipulation in these few hours than we have in years of research. Jin smiled slightly. Make sure we share our findings as well. Chief. Fair exchange. On the Yanhua, Jinho was reaching a similar conclusion. The humans had proven themselves not just technically advanced, but trustworthy allies in a crisis. Their willingness to risk their own ship to protect the Hanel fleet spoke volumes about their character. Sir, Myray said quietly, High Command is requesting a status update. What should I tell them? Jinho watched as another section of the corridor stabilized, creating a safe passage where moments ago there had been only chaos. Tell them we're witnessing the beginning of a new era in space travel, and perhaps in interspecies relations as well. The quantum storm continued to rage around them, but within their combined shield bubble, two very different species have found common ground. Engineers who hours ago had been suspicious of each other's technology were now working together, sharing ideas and solving problems that neither side could have handled alone. It wasn't in any protocol. It wasn't in any manual or regulation. But as both fleets moved steadily through the storm, protected by their joint innovation, it was clear to everyone that sometimes the best solutions came from ignoring the rulebook and trusting in each other's strengths. As the last traces of the quantum storm dissipated into normal space, The combined fleet of human and Handle ships hung against the backdrop of stars. The immediate danger had passed, but something fundamental had changed in the relationship between the two species. Admiral Jinho stood in the Yanhua's conference room, watching as the human shuttle docked. After everything that had happened, this face-to-face meeting seemed both necessary and slightly surreal. The door slid open, and Captain He Jin entered, accompanied by Commander Taidong. The human captain was shorter than the Handle, but carried herself with quiet confidence. Jinho noted that she wore her dress uniform, a sign of respect for the occasion. His antennae moved in a gesture of welcome as they approached. "Captain He Jin," he said formally, "welcome aboard the Yanhua." "Admiral." He Jin replied with a slight bow, having clearly studied Handle customs. "Thank you for your hospitality." They settled around the conference table, where holographic displays showed the aftermath of their joint operation. The corridor they had created through the quantum storm had not only saved their ships, but had also provided both species with invaluable scientific data. "Your engineers are remarkably adaptable," Jinho observed, studying the technical readouts. "The way they combined our shield harmonics with your quantum field technology. Most impressive." He Jin smiled. "Adaptation is a human specialty, Admiral. We've learned that the galaxy rarely fits into neat categories or follows strict protocols." "Yes," Jinho admitted, his inner eyelids flickering thoughtfully. "Perhaps that is something we Handle need to consider. Our protocols have served us well for centuries, but today proved they may need updating. Change isn't easy," He Jin acknowledged, "but sometimes it's necessary. We humans learned that lesson the hard way when we first ventured into space. That's why we build our ships the way we do." She gestured to a hologram of the stellar dawn. "We come in warships because we've learned the galaxy can be dangerous, but we fill them with medical supplies, emergency resources, hope. The strong shields that worried you so much. They're designed to protect delicate medicines as much as they are to protect us from attack." Jinho's antennae moved in a pattern indicating deep thought, the warship that brings healing instead of destruction. "It's an interesting paradox." "Life is full of paradoxes, Admiral," He Jin replied. "Like how a quantum storm that threatened to destroy us ended up bringing our people together." The meeting continued for several hours as both leaders discussed the implications of their encounter. Technical data was exchanged, along with cultural information that would help prevent future misunderstandings. But more importantly, trust was being built. "High Command has authorized emergency passage for your medical supplies," Jinho announced finally. "And they've suggested establishing a permanent diplomatic channel between our peoples." He Jin nodded appreciatively. "The colonists on New Haven will be grateful, and I think both our species will benefit from continued cooperation." As the human delegation prepared to return to their ship, Jinho made one final observation. "Captain, when your ship first appeared in our space, we saw it as a potential threat. Now I understand we were seeing only part of the picture." "That's often the case with first impressions," He Jin replied. "Sometimes the things that frighten us most turn out to be exactly what we need." The Handle would indeed mark this day in their historical records as the beginning of a new era. The day they learned that strength could serve compassion, that protocols could bend without breaking, and that sometimes the most powerful warship was the one that came bearing medicine instead of missiles. As the stellar dawn departed for New Haven, escorted now by honored allies rather than suspicious guards, both humans and Handle had learned valuable lessons about judging too quickly and the importance of looking beyond surface appearances. Sometimes it seemed the galaxy's greatest gifts came wrapped in the most unexpected packages. And so ended the first chapter in what would become a long and fruitful relationship between two very different species who had discovered, in the heart of a quantum storm, that their differences made them stronger together than apart.